We are back in the gym today, actually, and back in another kitchen. Today we're going to be honoring our fathers. Last time we honored our mothers with our Mother's Day muffins. Today we're going to be honoring our dads with our pancakes for Pops. Well, I just wanted to tell you, I'm all alone today. We're on summer vacation. But I wanted to just tell you a little bit about my dad. My dad was so special to me, and I think about him every single day and all the wonderful things that he did for me and my sister. Well, I just want to tell you just a little bit about him. Like many of you, he liked sports, but he had one sport in particular that he really, really liked, and that was Tiger baseball. Now, this hat was my dad's. Now, my dad went to heaven in 2002. This hat was bought in 1999, and it was the very last year, and this will mean something maybe to your dads, maybe to your grandpas. So if you ask your grandpa about this, I bet that he would know. But this is a hat we bought at original Tiger Stadium, the stadium that was always used before they built the new stadium. So we have this hat. So in honor of my dad, whenever I go anywhere really special that I know my dad would love, I wear my dad's Tiger hat. So I'm going to wear my Tiger hat today because I just love that. And I have some things up here that tell about my dad. This is, apparently he liked to wear lots of jackets. This is, maybe you guys have lots of jackets at your house too. I know we have closets that are stuffed full of jackets. This is my dad's Tiger baseball jacket, and this was ordered right from Tiger Stadium, the original. And he wore this all the time. You can see it's got the big D. It's a little bit dirty because he wore it a lot for the Detroit Tigers. Another thing that my dad did, this was before I was born, in the 1950s, and again, your grandpas would probably know about this, but my dad was in the Army, and he went to Japan, which is an island halfway across the world, and he served there, and he took care of people when they got injured and worked as a medic. But this was one of the jackets, and I know I'm turning around. They always say, don't turn around on a camera, so my apologies. It has his division number, 343, and I'm not sure what the GH means, but it has the Japan. So this was one of his jackets that he had early on in his life when he served in Japan. And I'm going to set this right here. Along with this is another special thing. My parents let me take piano lessons when I was a little girl, and I took them all the way through up into junior high school, and I actually went to college and learned about playing the piano and became a professional musician. Well, I taught in a local school. It's called Fruitport. You might have heard of Fruitport, and it says Fruitport Choir on the back. Well, I was the choir director at Fruitport from 1985 until into, 2008, so quite a long time. Well, one year we did jackets, and this is the jacket that we did, and it has my daddy's name on it. It says George and Fruitport Choir. Well, and everywhere he went, when he wore this, people would stop him and say, well, are you in choir? And he would say, no, I'm not in choir, but my daughter teaches choir. So that's why I have the jacket. So these are some of the things that are really special about my dad. And like many of you, we take pictures when we have some special activities. Well, pictures then were different a long time ago. When I was a little kid, you had to put film in a camera and drop it in. You clicked the picture, then you had to turn the knob, and all of these fancy things, you took it to the store and they made pictures, something like this. And these are some of the pictures of my dad. I'm not sure how good you can see those, but this is my dad when he was in the Army, and these are his everyday clothes that he wore. They call those fatigues. And this was him in his more dress outfit. You can see he has a tie on and a fancy hat. This was also taken in Japan. I don't know if you can tell if the building looks any different. I know it looks old right there. And those are some special pictures. Now, if any of you know me really well, you know that I love stuffed animals. At my house, I probably have 100 stuffed animals. Well, my dad was such a sweetheart that he took a picture with my 2 stuffed animals, my little monkey that's named Charlie and my little doggy that's named Dino. So he was with Charlie and Dino. This is just some things about my dad, and I'm sure you have lots and lots of stories about your dad. But these 2 pages sort of tell the story about mine. He worked for Ford Motor Company. He didn't build cars, but he was an analyst, and that means that he was the guy that went out and looked through all the parts and all of the things to make sure that everything worked correctly. So this is my dad at Ford Motor. He worked there a long time, and he got his 25-year gold watch, and that's a picture of that. This is some pictures of him in his office and with some of his friends down here. Of course, we all have friends. But this page, I think, tells the most. Right down here, this says Dad, and this says World's Greatest. And I really do believe that for me, that my dad was my world's greatest dad. This is a picture of me. I'm the little one. It was my daddy's birthday, and that's my sister. And this is my dad's birthday. But every year, one of the things that we used to do, which you probably have traditions at your house as well, we used to go up north, and everybody goes up north. Well, we went to a place called Mullet Lake, and we stayed in a cabin every year. And this is my dad. He liked to fish, but you can see the fish are little teeny weeny things on there. Those are the only fish I ever remember my daddy catching. We had a lot of ducks around the cottage too. We used to have to shoo them away. Him sitting on the porch, and him always, no matter what, he could cheer you up, and he would make his funny little face. And that is some things about my daddy. One of the things he also had, which to me is super cool, and again, your dads and maybe your grandparents would remember this, but I know you all know that baseball at the very end, just like football has the one event at the end of the year that I can't think of the name of right now, the Super Bowl, baseball has the World Series. And this is signed by one of the players that won that year in the World Series, and he actually became a manager of Tiger Baseball. But his name was Alan Trammell, and this is one of the balls that they threw out used for one pitch. And I believe he was either a shortstop or the guy behind the plate that I can't think of, but it says 84 World Series champs, and they won that year. So that's some of the special things about my dad. Come on, and let's go in the kitchen now, and we're going to start our cooking and make some pancakes up for our dads. So we're back in the kitchen now, and you are with Mrs. Thomas, if I forgot to introduce myself. Some of the kids call me Thomas, some of them call me Tom Tom, or TT, or EE. I'm not sure where all the names come, but you can pick the one that you like the best. Some of the littler ones just say Thomas. So I'm Mrs. Thomas, and I go to St. John's Church, and we are going to make pancakes today. Now, the last time I made pancakes, believe it or not, was 1982, almost 40 years ago, and they were terrible. So hopefully this time I have a really good recipe. I have all my ingredients. When I cook, I make sure that I get everything assembled beforehand so I don't have to scramble around and nothing gets ruined or sits too long or anything like that. So my recipe calls for 1 cup of flour, and I have my flour over here, 2 tablespoons of sugar, 2 teaspoons of baking powder, 1/2 teaspoon of salt, which my salt is a little on the empty side, so hopefully we have enough of that. I have my 1 cup milk already measured. I have my eggs, and it says 2 tablespoons butter melted or vegetable oil. Well, I choose to use vegetable oil. That way I don't have to be on the stove with young hands so that you don't have to worry about getting burnt or anything like that. And then we are going to start. It says to preheat your oven to 200 degrees if you want to keep your pancakes warm. What I'm going to do is I'm going to put mine on a platter. You can use any kind of plate, and I'm going to warm mine up in the microwave for later on. I think I'll take a taste though, just in case before, to see how they come out. So this is going to be my platter, and it's all ready as well. And I have all my tools, my bowls, and my mixing whisk. This is called a whisk. My measuring spoons, my measuring cup, a fork, and a spatula. So we're going to get started. And the first thing it says is to, after heating up your oven, to keep your pancakes warm if you choose to do that, we combine all the dry ingredients. And the dry ingredients are the things that don't spill and get you wet. They might spill and get you dirty, but they don't get you wet. So that's why they call them dry. And for some weird reason, I always keep them in order of how I'm going to use them. So I'm going to start with my flour. I'm going to use this size bowl. It says use a medium bowl. And what they say is to scoop the flour into the cup rather than the other way so that it doesn't get too packed down. So I'm going to scoop mine into the cup. Yours will probably come already measured, and it will be in a little baggie, but it will be loose, so you can just add it nice and loose. You don't have to pack it down. So I'm going to scoop my flour in here real quick. And I have my favorite brand. You can use any brand that you want. But this is a brand that I really like. It's called King's, I don't know what, King's something. But that works out, and I'll put it in my cup. I always overflow it a little bit, and then I skim off the top with a knife so that I make sure I get enough. And I have my work area covered with paper towel so that you can use a knife. It probably is a little bit easier. I just have my spoon out right here. So I'm going to add that to my medium bowl, put that out of the way. So there's my 1 cup flour. Now it says 2 tablespoons sugar. Sugar is always my favorite part because I love sugar. Sugar is in a lot of things. I have all my measuring spoons here, a whole bunch to pick from. If you have a little tiny brother or sister, I bet that's something that they like to play with. There's 1. Or maybe if you have dollies and mom lets you use them. They make good dolly spoons. So I have my 2 tablespoons of sugar in. Now I'm going to do 2 teaspoons of baking powder. Baking powder, and that makes your pancakes fluffy. So I'm going to do that, and I have 1 teaspoon. Add that in. I just sort of twirl it around a little bit so it's a little bit mixed, and then there's my 2. And I made a boo-boo when I brought baking soda instead of baking powder, so we'll see how that works out as well. And then I just finally add my little bit of salt, and that's a 1/2 teaspoon, which isn't very much, but salt helps to make everything work together when you use salt in a recipe, especially if you're doing any kind of baking. I'm using my finger because I'm going to be the only one that eats these, but you would probably want to use something else. So I'm going to stir that up. You can use a fork, you can use a spoon, just so it gets really nice and combined, so that one side doesn't puff up and the other side doesn't stay flat, because you have to get that stuff mixed in, or has no sugar. So then, here's what my bowl looks like, and it's mixed up. Now I'm going to make what we call a well in the middle. And if you're thinking, what is a well? Well, a well is something that goes deep down into the ground, and then it fills up with water. So my well is going to be filled up, I don't know if you can see that or not. My well is going to be filled up with my wet ingredients. And again, the dry ones are the ones that can spill, but they don't get you wet. The wet ones are the ones that truly, if you spill on you, get you wet. So here's my first thing. This is 1 cup of milk, and I have it measured. And you always want to eyeball. That means look right at where the line is going to be and make sure that it matches at eye level. Because sometimes if you look down like this, you add too much milk to your recipe or your liquid, and then it doesn't turn out. I'm going to mix this in another bowl. So there goes my milk. And then it says 1 large egg. Well, I have 2 eggs, just in case I broke one on the way, or one of them's bad. And I always crack it into a separate bowl, just in case. Every now and then you get sort of a stinky egg that you might not want to use. So this looks like a really good egg. So I'm going to throw my eggshell out and take my fork and just beat that. They call it beating, but you're really not being mean to the egg. You're just mixing it up. So don't be too mean to your egg. Just mix it up around, and then you can add that to your milk. So you're going to get that in there. And this is the part that never looks super good to me when you add it in, because now I have white with a big glob of yellow in the middle. Then my last wet ingredient is 1 tablespoon of either melted butter or oil. And again, I chose to use the oil so I don't have to turn on the stove, because even though I'm not little, I still can get burnt, and I don't want to get burnt today. Got that open. And always when you measure, don't measure over your bowl, because if you go over, then you have too much of whatever you were adding. So I'm going to pour that in, just like that. And then we're going to see how well we can mix this. Get my ingredients out of my way. And it says whisk. It says whisk your ingredients together. Well, this is a whisk, and it's just like a little steely thing, and you mix it up, and it mixes it up really good. So you just swish it around and have some fun swishing it. It's like making bubbles, you know, you mix it all up. And that's a lot of fun. And it turns a really pretty color. It's sort of like melted butter, actually, is what it looks like, except there's some bubbles in it. So I'm going to do that. And then I'm going to set this aside for just a second, and I have my dry, and I am going to plug my frying pan in. You can do a griddle, you can do a frying pan on the stove. I have an electric frying pan, and you can tell by the look of it, it's been used quite a bit, but it still is my favorite, and it works really well. So farther down your instruction list, it tells you to take some oil and rub it on your frying pan. So I'm going to get my frying pan all prepared so that, one, my pancakes don't stick is why you do this. So you just rub some oil. Now that first time I made pancakes and they didn't come out so well is because I dumped the oil in And basically I had a bunch of little fried circles and they were really gross, so we didn't eat them. That night we had something else. And I'm going to turn it on to a medium, which on mine is about 300, and we'll see how that goes. We can always put it up or we can lower it. Okay, so now we have our well ready and our dry ingredients. So we're going to add, and it will overflow because it's a good well, so it has lots of stuff in it. We're going to add this to the well, and that just helps to keep it contained so it doesn't get too liquidy and runny and gooey. So I've poured that in, and I'm going to lightly whisk it together because you don't want to get it so it's super smooth because then your batter will run too much. You just want to make sure you get all those ingredients wet. And if there's some lumps, that's okay. You don't want it to be too lumpy because you don't want to gross out your dad or anything like that. All right, so it says to use 2 to 3 tablespoons. So I'm just going to use some spoons. If you want to use an actual tablespoon, you can. And then I'm going to just use my spoon and spoon some on. They're going to be small pancakes. When I was a kid, they called them dollar-sized pancakes because they used to have silver dollars. I don't know if they call them that now or if they just call them small pancakes or they just call them pancakes. But mine are going to be some small ones. So I'm going to pull my frying pan over a little bit and I can feel that it's warm. So that's good. Now here's the tricky part for me. All right, so I'm going to take my spoon. Here's what my batter looks like. So it's a little bumpy, you can see. I'm just going to spoon this on top. Make sure you're real careful. You don't get too close to the frying pan because you don't want to put your arm on the frying pan. And there is my 4th one. So we should have enough for another batch if we want to do that. I brought my butter and my maple syrup because that's what I like on pancakes. So we're going to let that sit for a couple minutes, and it says about 1 to 2 minutes. So, and then we wait till they get bubbly. Lots of people do lots of things with pancakes. Some people put blueberries in them. Some people put different kind of flour that's called whole wheat in there. Some people make buttermilk pancakes where they substitute the regular milk with buttermilk, which is a little bit different kind. Not really sure exactly how that works. But I know that they do that. So there's lots of different varieties. Some people like to put strawberries or whipped cream. I bet you all like whipped cream. Sometimes you probably want to squirt it in your mouth. I know I used to do that when I was a kid. And it says, so yeah, so lots of things you can do with your pancakes. Mine look like they're cooking pretty good. I want to peek. Not quite, oops, almost ready to flip. Wow, they weren't kidding. So I'm going to carefully, this might be a job for a mom or dad, scoop. Here's what my pancake looks so far. Ready? And it's gonna flip. There we go. Woohoo! Yay! And then what was the next one I did? I think it was this one. Let's peek under the bottom. Wow, these get done quick. This is cool. All right, so flip. I did that one good. And I'll flip my 3rd one. Flip. We're 3 for 4 here, folks. And then that one, oops, that one mushed onto the other one a little bit. And it's got a funky little edge to it, but we'll get that off and we'll pretend that didn't happen. And I got my 4th one. So it says wait about 1 to 2 minutes. And we'll see how they cook up. And again, I got my platter all ready, so I can put them on. And they said to do it just until it's brown. And that looks pretty brown on both sides. I'm going to show you what my pancake looks like. Here's the second side, or the first side, and here is the second side. So I think we have some pretty good pancakes here. Flip. Yep, that one came out good. And flip. And flip. So I'm going to stop here. You have more batter, so you can make more of them. You'll probably get about 12 pancakes, and they're pretty good size, actually, because they puff up pretty good when you put that one ingredient, that baking powder or soda. So my frying pan is off. And I'm going to take one pancake. Do you think they're going to be good? Do they look good? Hopefully they're done enough in the middle. Let's take a peek. It looks pretty done. Okay, so I like to add butter, so I'm going to use a little bit of butter. Put it on the top. And I'm going to try not to burn my mouth. So you might have to be not anxious and wait. Patience. I bet your parents have taught you about patience a lot of times when you have to wait even though you just don't want to. So So now I have my butter on. I'm going to take a little syrup. Okay, cross your fingers, everybody. And let's see what we got. Okay, it looks good on the inside. Get a little bite here. Blow it off. Is it hot? And voila, you have pancakes for your dad. I'm going to take one more bite. Then we have one more activity I'd like to do with you. Okay, we have two different things that we're going to make. I'm not going to put it completely all the way together because you can see that I've almost completed one of each. I have a model airplane that's got a little Home Depot flyer because they gave us all the supplies to make it, and my propeller does turn. I didn't paint mine, but you can paint them. There's our plane. We'll set that right there. And then here's our truck. Now I didn't quite finish this because I wanted to show you what to do with it. Again, you can paint it if you want. I left the wheels off. So, and what they said in the instructions is paint it before you put the wheels on. So there's our finished thing. I opened my airplane kit and I have several different parts. This is what we call the main part, or the body, or the nose. And the nose is this direction. There's a part that's got a little slit that goes in the back. Here's the nose. And we have the little, I guess, what do you call that? The wings that fit in the back. You're going to have a wing that fits on the top like that, just like you see in that. And you have some more wings right on the top. And your propeller. Okay, so those are your parts that you should have. I also have the little thing on the bottom. They call this the wheel. And then I have some nails. So the first thing you're going to do is sand your wood. If you are one of the ones that got the fire truck, you'll want to sand all of your pieces, and I'll show you what that means. I'm going to take this apart. When it goes together, it's going to look like this, with these, with these. In the instructions, mom and dads, it says to use wood glue. When I put mine together, I used regular Elmer's glue, and it worked just fine. So you can go ahead and use that. Sandpaper will be provided in your kit, so you can just use this. Mine's a real fine one, but what this does, guys, is it just smooths all the edges. So it makes it real nice for painting, or super soft to touch. Gets all that little dust off. Well, they say to sand with the grain of the wood. And what? So you want to sand in the direction of the lines. And all you have to do to sand is just put your sandpaper in your hand, hold on to your piece, and just lightly rub it. Like that. And you want to get all the edges so you can make it nice and, oh, you can already tell, nice and smooth on the edges, all the surfaces, on all of your wooden pieces. This one, this kind of wood is a little bit different. It's like more of a what they call particle board. So what I did when I sanded mine here is I just got the little edges off. So I just went along the edges like that, just to smooth that out so it'll be nice and smooth to use. So that's how you're going to sand it. And that will take you a few minutes to do, or if you're working with somebody, they can help you sand it. So we're gonna pretend that this is all completely sanded. And I'm gonna show you what you do first. And the first thing that you're gonna do is glue your parts on. I'm starting with this because this one, you have to have the glue dry before you nail. And it just makes it a lot easier so then it doesn't wiggle all around and all of that. So what I do, I have my Elmer's glue, and I glue my pieces the way it says in the directions, and I'm gonna start with the front of my fire truck because there are more parts that need to be glued. And I just swiggle the glue around. You don't want gobs and gobs that are dripping off because then it'll just drip all over your fire truck and it won't look that nice. So I put the glue on, and I'm gonna put it right even in the front. And the nice thing about glue is it takes a few minutes to dry so you can straighten it up if you get it a little bit crooked. And I think mine is probably pretty straight on there. So I'm gonna glue that piece on. In a few minutes we can nail. Then I'm gonna do glue on my long pieces. And I'm just gonna put that right there. I'm trying to avoid the nail hole marks just in case it fills up with glue because I don't want that to happen. You put these in the center all the way to the back of your big piece of wood. And you just set them on right about where you think they ought to go. You don't have to measure it. It doesn't have to be perfect. I just lined up the back of my, pieces of wood to the back of the base of the truck. So I've glued those on. We're going to wait just a minute before we hammer so that those have a chance to set. And that means so that the glue can dry a little bit and stick so you don't jiggle around. So I'm going to set that aside. Now on my plane, the first thing that I have to glue is, let's look at our instructions. Well, the first thing I have to glue isn't for a while. I only actually use glue once on this. So I'm going to hammer my wings. And it says about 1.5 inches from the nose. Well, we already know that the nose is this front piece, not the one with the slit. So we're going to hammer it close to this edge. And I'm going to measure about 1.5 inches. And again, your parents can help you. Okay, that will fall right about there. So I'm going to line that up, get my nail holes in the center. And one of the nice things that you can do to help you get started, because these are going to be teeny weeny nails, so you're going to have to be a little bit careful because I don't want your hands to get hurt. I take the point of my nail and I stick it and push it down in the wood so it sticks just a little bit. And that way it stays a little better. So we use my dad's hammer. This hammer is probably about 70 years old. This hammer right here. So this is almost what you would say is an antique. So I'm going to use my dad's antique hammer. Okay, George, here we go. Okay, we're going to pretend that that's in all the way. It's not quite in all the way, but we're going to pretend that it is. And then you take your second nail and you put it in the hole, and you're going to do the same thing to that. Okay, so you can hold that right in place. And that's where that goes. Now you have a propeller. Your propeller, you're going to nail in the front. And you just, on the nose, and you just pick where you think, and you don't want to hammer it all the way in. You want it to be just slightly loose so that it will spin, because like mine spins, you can turn it. And if you hammer it too tight, you're not going to be able to spin it. So I stick my point in, right? You remembered that, so that it has a sticking spot. And then I'm going to try to hammer this just a little bit. Okay, we're going to call that good right for now. And then what you're going to do is you're going to take this a little bit lower than the top of your wing. So you want to get that right in the center there, like that. But really it doesn't matter like a ton. And we're going to glue that on. And then you're going to have a chance to put another nail in that. So here goes my glue. Remember, not a whole bunch. And you set that on the bottom. And voila, you have a wheel on. We're going to set this one aside now. I'm going to come back to our truck. So now what you would do, but my glue is still a little jiggly, so I'm just going to pretend that that's set in there. You would take your nails, and I always pour my stuff into a little cup so it doesn't roll all over the table, especially if you have a bouncy hammer table that bounces all over like mine just did, then you won't lose all of your stuff onto the floor. So I'm going to use, let's see, you have all the same size nails in this one. This one you have a long one and short ones. And we've used just the short ones so far on our plane. So you put these in the holes and you hammer those down. And I'm just going to stick them where the holes go because mine isn't quite glued. But I have one that's done already right here. So they go in these two holes right up front. And you're going to hammer those down. And then I'm going to dig out a few more nails. You have 2 more spots to hammer. Right there. Actually, you have 4 more spots to hammer. Because you can see where the holes go. And you put those in. And then you take and you put your other 2 nails in back here. Then, once you have that part done, you're going to glue this part on. So it sits just like that. Hammer your nail in the center hole. And you have an almost finished fire truck. So what makes this special is, in this particular kit, you get some stickers that you can decorate it with. Now, I like to look at the picture, so I do it. I'm going to do mine the same, but you may choose to put your stickers where you would like. Cool. That's pretty cool that you have all these details to do. And of course, you can paint it any color you want, but most of the fire trucks I've seen have always been red. And I think that's because red stands out and then people can see when the fire truck is coming. I got my lights on the front. I got my front done. What else do I have left? These must be back lights. So I'm going to take these and put them on the back because I think that's where they go. Right there. There, now I have backlight so people can see, and I have 2 more ladder stickers, and I think I'm gonna put my ladders right on the very top of the ladder holder. That way, if you need to raise your ladder up, you can raise your ladder up when you have a real fire truck. So I believe that's where they go, and that completes all of our stickers, and the only thing left we have to do is to put the wheels on. Again, you can paint. So I'm going to get my wheels out. We have, how many wheels would we have? Do we have 3? Would we have 2? I think we'd have 4 wheels. Then you have 4 little pins that go in the wheels. That's to hold them onto the fire truck. And I'm going to stick the pin. Now there's a flat side. I don't know if you can see that. There's a flat side. And there's also a side that it's got like a ring, and then it gets in deeper, sort of like our well we made in our pancake batter. So I'm going to put the little pegs into the bumpy side. And there's a little hole that goes in right there. And I just push that in. Or maybe I have to hammer it a little bit. Let's see what happens. And voila, we have a fire truck. So yay! Here, we're going to come back to our plane, and the only thing now we would have left to do is you would nail in the nail on the very bottom. And this is the part that I had to ask my husband on, so hopefully I remember exactly what he says on how to put this in. So there's a little slot in the back. So put this little slit the opposite way so that the opening is in the back. And there we go. No, that'll work, yep. I didn't find the need to glue it because mine stayed in really, really good. It doesn't fall out, so I didn't glue that part. So really on the plane, the only part you have to glue is the bottom wheel. And voila, we have a finished plane and our propeller moves. So I just want to tell you, happy Father's Day. Make sure that you treasure your daddy always in your heart because they love you very much and they always want what's best for you. I have a poem that I'd like to end with, and this says, what makes a dad? Well, God is the one that created the people, and so he knew that when we were born, we would need great moms and dads to help us learn and help us grow and help us become great, wonderful people that can do wonderful things for God in our world. So God took the strength of a mountain, the majesty of a tree, the warmth of a summer sun, the calm of a quiet sea, the generous soul of nature, and the comforting arm of night, the wisdom of the ages, and the power of the eagle's flight. And we all know how strong eagles are. And the patience of eternity, eternity means forever, the depth of a family need. Then God combined all of these things, all of these qualities, when there was nothing more to add. He knew his masterpiece was complete, and so he called it Dad. Happy Father's Day.